Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. This is the weekend edition, and today we have a very special episode. We're doing a deep dive on golf courses. That's right, golf courses. But first, a quick thank you to our sponsor. Today's show is brought to you by the Secrets of Successful Syndication. If you've exhausted your own funds to invest in real estate, you've just brought your own investment career to a halt. Developing the skill to raise capital legally, reliably, and professionally might be just what you need to unlock the ceiling to your investment portfolio. This 2-day workshop maps out how to transform your business into one where you enlist the help and capital of others to scale your portfolio. It's hosted by my good friends Robert Helms and Russell Gray of the Real Estate Guys radio show. They're such a class act. February 15th and 16th in Dallas, Texas. It'll be a chance for us to meet in person as well. For more information, go to victorjm.com/events. That's victorjm.com/events. And click on the link for the Secrets of Successful Syndication. We are back here on the weekend edition. We're doing a deep dive today on golf courses. This is an area where there's tremendous transformation going on in the entire industry, and it involves a lot of land. So it's a big, big real estate play. Golf courses all over North America are struggling as participation in golf is declining. Many baby boomers are exiting the sport, and there aren't quite as many people entering the sport as there once were. It's simply demographics. With that change, as with any change, there can be winners and losers. You can be the victim of that change, or you can be the instigator of that change. On today's show, we're actually going to do a deep dive into a particular proposal that's been made where, in fact, there's a tremendous amount of community opposition to conversion of a golf course into a residential neighborhood. In fact, there's a lot of covenants, that is promises, that were made at the time that the land was entitled for the neighboring residential neighborhood that would preserve that particular golf course as a golf course and green space in perpetuity. Doesn't matter where you live, anywhere in North America, this is a topic that's going to be a hot topic some point in your community over the next decade. There's a couple of segments to today's show. We're going to first start with a community meeting specifically organized in opposition to redeveloping a golf course, and we're going to wrap up with a conversation with Mr. George Ross, who's been an avid golfer for much of his life, as well as someone who's been firsthand involved in the acquisition and redevelopment of numerous golf courses around North America. Because, folks, where there's change, there's also opportunity. First, to the Community Association meeting, we're going to catch up with two people. Number one, Mr. Neil Thompson. He's the head of the Beaverbrook Community Association, and talk to him about his perspective on the proposed redevelopment. And then secondly, we're going to talk with Jenna Sudds, the newly elected councilwoman who is responsible for this area in the West End of Ottawa, to get her perspective on the proposed redevelopment. Okay, I'm here with Neil Thompson, head of the Canada Beaverbrook Community Association. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
So, Neil, golf courses continent-wide have been struggling. It's a demographic issue. The Canada Golf and Country Club is one of the better golf courses here in the city. Does it ring true to you that they're actually struggling financially?
No, it certainly, the Club Link members who golf here, and they're members of the community, they were at the AGM, and they made somewhere between $600,000 and $1 million in profit this year, which is probably the most profitable golf course. Certainly in their portfolio, and they own 4 in the city, and this is definitely the most popular and the most profitable. So, and it's certainly recognized as being one of the top premier golf courses. So, is golf declining in general? Yes. Is this one declining? I don't think so. I think it's more a question of, if they sold the golf course, if you use the standard multiples in terms of a business, it's worth $3 or $4 million. The conservative estimate is properties for sale for redevelopment, it's worth $50 million. So the equation's pretty clear here. They see a lot more profit from getting it as development land to share with Minto and Richcraft than as running it as a golf course. And it's clear from looking at the Glen Abbey situation and 3 other golf courses in Toronto that that's exactly what they're doing. In fact, we know they're divesting and have divested quite a few rural golf courses up around Tremblant, etc. So it's clear where their shift is. They're going after the land they can turn into development at a much higher cost.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, when this whole area was developed, Genstar was the developer. One of the covenants, one of the promises made to the community as part of the zoning was the preservation of 40% green space. How much is that a factor in this argument?
It's really all of it, because this is, it's a golf course, but it was all part of that 40%. The golf course is about a third of that, so it's about a total of 12 or 13% of the total area in Canada Lake. So it's a big chunk of it, but it's embedded straight into it. And everybody, we've had several people come to us with their sales contract from the original sale, and it refers to the 40% guarantee right in there. It points right to the agreement. It's the same agreement. It's in the city official plan document. Right there, it says this piece of property is governed by this. So it's a very strong covenant, and it's going to be interesting to see what their opinion is. Basically, everything we're seeing saying they're testing the waters to see if the city will say, no, we don't want to run a golf course. And that's the only way they can get it back to do redevelopment. So,
well, we're here in a packed room. I've got to estimate there's at least 400 people in here. It's minus 20 degrees outside, so the weather didn't stop people from coming out to voice their opinion.
That's right. If this had been the summertime, we would have had to have an outdoor event in a baseball stadium.
Well, thank you, Neil. Thanks very much for your perspective.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Next, we're going to catch up with City Councillor Jenna Sudds. She's the organizer of tonight's meeting, and she's also been spearheading the efforts within City Council to oppose the redevelopment of these lands. At the center of the argument is a covenant to preserve 40% of the space in the neighborhood as green space, of which the golf course is a significant portion. Let's listen to what she has to say. I'm here with Councillor Jenna Sudds. First of all, congratulations on the election win.
Oh, thank you very much. It feels like forever ago now, but thank you.
Not in the chair a few minutes when you're faced with a big land development issue. There's a strong legal argument that maybe this golf course can't get redeveloped. If that domino was to fall, there's a number of other hurdles that need to get past. Planning and zoning, city council. Gosh, we had 600 people here tonight. You pulled together really the voice of the community here. What are your thoughts?
I think you're right. Right now we're at that legal stage where the 40% agreement is so front and center, and really understanding from it what our options are is critical. That can't happen soon enough, of course, but as you've seen tonight, hundreds of people are really rallying around this issue in opposition of any development moving forward, and I think that's a sentiment shared across the community.
I think that's absolutely right. And I'm a developer, and I'm generally pro-development, but at the same time recognize that what was put in place here was put in place for a reason. Developers need to respect that.
Absolutely, and I think many people in our community have made such huge life decisions based on the understanding that the 40% agreement was in place and that green space would remain in perpetuity. And so, that to me is really a crux of this issue, in that we as a city need to honor that legal agreement and make sure that green space stays in place.
Well, Jenna, keep up the great work. Thank you so much for organizing tonight, and good luck in the coming weeks.
Thank you. My pleasure. Take care.
So we've just heard from Councillor Jenna Sudds. Now we're going to go to the other end of the spectrum, and we're going to talk to Mr. George Ross about redevelopment of golf course lands as residential neighborhoods, or just taking them to their highest and best use. This is an area where he's got tremendous amount of experience. Here's George. George, you've been an avid golfer for many years.
Yes.
Certainly the popularity of golf is declining. There aren't as many new young golfers coming into the sport as there are people retiring out of the sport.
Correct.
And we talked about the specifics of this particular golf course in Canada.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to get your thoughts on that, as well as your thoughts on redevelopment of golf courses, obviously building on your experience in the Trump organization.
Yeah, but to get from the development rights, that's a major jump. From golf course to some type of development is a major leap with all kinds of ramifications and difficulties.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But so be it. The concept is good, and as it turns out, what's happened as far as golf is concerned, it's not that there are less golfers. The interest in golf hasn't diminished. What has diminished is the price that it costs to pay to belong to a club. That at that point, a lot of the people say, hey, it's not worth it. I don't play that much golf. Why should I pay X number of dollars to belong to a club or to get time? So that's happened. Also, the fact that the last requirement is it takes you at least 4 or 5 hours. And a lot of the younger people are saying, I don't want to be away from my family 4 or 5 hours. Or the spouse says, don't go, spend more time with your family. So the time commitment plus the monetary commitment has diminished. And you don't see that much golf clubs used to be social places for socialization. Not anymore. That has dropped off. They're saying, if I want to go to a restaurant, I go to a restaurant. So the whole concept basically has changed. That doesn't mean it's dead. It just means that it changed and it's not going to be business as usual. Now, however, having said that, there are golf courses, and there are many of them from what you have here, that can still financially be great, depending upon how much you pay for it. Now, you pay for it, if you're buying it as a golf course, you're going to be paying a lot less than if you bought it for vacant land. So it's a question of how long at this is it going to happen. Now, if somebody buys a golf course and can run it as a golf course and not lose their shirt, in other words, that they can make it they can entice members, or they can entice people to play there, then at a period of time, that will be a great deal, because they're land banking, and the land will only appreciate in value over a period of time. The question is when? Who knows? Now, having said that, there will come a time when they're going to have, whoever it is going to have to go back to the municipality and say, hey, it doesn't work as a golf course. We want to build housing on it. And then a lot of it depends on what's going on at the time. Also, it depends on what the zoning is. What does communities say? How restricted is it? So usually when you have the restriction on land, where it's green space and what have you, that's for a period of time, and you get tax benefits and what have you. But if in fact the golf course is there, and there's going to be nothing on it because the golf course can't survive, then you go back to the municipality and say, hey, we got all this acreage, but there's nothing on it. You want vacant land? What good is that? So they'll have to say, well, because they want to get taxes, they want to do things. So although they might not have a plan now, it depends on what the circumstances are at the time, but they can work out all kinds of things. So maybe you turn it into a 9-hole golf course, or you do senior citizen housing, or whatever is required at the time, which would be feasible and acceptable in the community as a community project, as a good use of the land. Although it's hazardous, because the general tendency is no, let's not do it. But then you say, well, what do you want? You want vacant land? Is that what you want? You want nothing on it with no taxes? So there has to be a reckoning, and it does work. I mean, depending on the time, circumstances change, but the powers that be that govern the land, and the government or what have you, ultimately are forced to do something more creative than have vacant land, a golf course that doesn't survive. But it's depending on who's there at the time and what political power you have and what you offer. It could be risky. However, how about maybe taking part of the land and turning it into a park? Giving the city or the county or the municipality, whoever it is, something that they really want: a lake, a park where people sit down, a small, whatever it is. May have to throw something into the pot that's desirable. So instead of having a golf course, which is no longer a golf course and vacant land, we'll make something that's attractive for the people. The people will like, and in exchange for that, we'll let you build housing under certain restrictions, which we can live with, and we can get the taxes for.
Fascinating. If I remember correctly, Donald at one point bought some golf courses basically as a land banking strategy.
Not at one point, he's still buying them. I mean, he's not still, since he's president, he's not buying them. But he's got a lot of them. I think when I left, I think it was like 15. But on the same concept, when we first talked about it, in other words, when Donald and I first talked about it, he told me what he was planning on doing. He says he's not planning on building any more buildings and taking the risk. He's out of that. In other words, that's good when you're younger. So now, and he loves golf, and he knows the value of land, and he said he was thinking of buying golf courses with the purpose of land banking, based on the future growth. He had a golf part of the organization. They had part of it where they could run the golf courses and effectively not lose a lot of money in running them, and buying them very cheap. I mean, consistently very cheap for what it was. In other words, if you figure it on an acreage basis, it's very cheap. And then what he was doing was saying to members that were there, you always bought them, they had members. It was never a course that didn't have members. The problem is that the membership was too small, and they couldn't make any improvements, and they couldn't carry the cost of operating the club. So, but they were there, and they would pay something. So what Donald's group was saying was, hey, here, look, you're over here now. You're paying $10,000 to play now. I'm going to approve the course. You can leave the $10,000 for a period of time, and it was less than many instances. And when I improve the course, and it's now beautiful, I've done a lot of improvements. You can decide: do you want to stay or you want to go? And adding the prestige of the name that had a Trump name on it, the members, a lot of the members said, yeah, they would stay. And a lot of new members said, hey, now it's a good place because we know now it's going to have the improvements. We know it's going to continue on. So we don't have to worry about the fact that there's a huge need for money, which the members aren't required to pay. So there's a different concept in running it, not as a long-term arrangement, unless it works as a long-term arrangement, but during a period of time until the area can no longer support it, and then you've got this land which you could find a higher and better use because it's in a good area. It's a big chunk of land. You can build on it. There's lots of things you can do with it, and you're buying it cheap.
Probably cheaper than almost cheaper than undeveloped land, right?
Of course. So I'm not saying it this way. What you have here is you have a golf course, which you're talking about, which you could probably buy for X dollars. Let's put a number on it. You could buy it for $10 million. It's just a number. I'm not putting anything out. But if you had the right to develop it, it's worth 60. That's it. So now can you wait between now? What can you do between now and the time you're going to develop it? But the potential is there, and it's just a question of how you're going to see it, when you're going to see it, and whatever the circumstances are at the time, and they can change. So it's a risk, but you're still buying land cheap with all its restrictions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. Especially this one, what you're talking about is the fact that this is the best golf course. So what's going to happen is, as the other golf courses don't survive, those members are going to come to your golf course because there's a certain number that want to play. So you have greater longevity. If you were number 4 on 4 golf courses, I wouldn't say it's not nearly as good as if you're number 1 on 4 golf courses by a long shot, because that's where you get some additional members, and which will bring in the revenue necessary to run the facility and cover the expenses of the land. It's a hell of a play, but it's a long-term play.
I love it. Well, George, thank you for your perspective on this.
You're welcome.
Well, I love George's perspective on this. If you're thinking of land development at some point in the future, golf courses can be a great play. Definitely, I don't recommend going after an area where there are strong development restrictions or covenants that would prevent the redevelopment of a golf course, or in cases where there's really strong community opposition. But if you've got a clear pathway to redeveloping those lands, it can be a great way to land bank. It can be a great way of acquiring properties at pennies on the dollar. As you're thinking about that, go polish your golf clubs for spring. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.